Blake, all I have to say is kiss me boy, for this will be the last time I meet you.
Yes, we're doing Barry Lyndon as our first
Woo!
movie, also my choice movie, because
Right.
I've watched this for the first time about this time last year, and Jess and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's a very long movie. It's just over 3 hours.
3 hours and 7 minutes.
Yes.
I will say, I actually checked. It's if you don't watch the credits, it's 3 hours and 1 minute.
Uh-huh.
The credits are 6 minutes.
Nice.
So
And-
really, I mean, you have 3 hours and 1 minute.
Well,
You don't have 3 hours and 7 minutes, though.
and I forgot to time when the intermission is, because this is one of those few movies, or back in the day kind of movies, where, if a movie was a little bit longer, they do an intermission.
It's not really much of an intermission, though. I feel like
Well,
they just
but
kept it in for posterity.
You can pause it though there, like if you need to. Like there's 2 chapters in this movie, and it cuts off at the very end of chapter 1, which is a pretty good kind of part 1 of the film. And so
yeah.
the first time Jess and I actually watched this, I didn't think she was going to enjoy this at all. And so we got to the intermission. She was like, "Oh, I really need to go to bed. Can we actually pause this and resume this tomorrow?"
Well, spoiler alert, I feel that me and your wife are of two minds in this movie, because I didn't think I would like this movie at all.
Uh-huh.
I kind of looked into it and I'm like, fuck, it's a Blake movie. I actually put it on the other night. We're recording on a Sunday. I watched this Friday night.
Yep.
I put it on. I was actually still kind of gaming when I started it, and I'll be like,
jeez.
I'll have one eye on one screen and one eye on the other screen. Within about 2 minutes, though, I shut my laptop and I was like, I need to give this movie my full attention.
Yep.
And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this movie.
Yes.
Although I'm a little perplexed as to why I enjoyed it. But I did enjoy it.
It's just a weirdly intoxicating film.
Indeed. And I think regular listeners will probably now have a good sense of what constitutes a Blake movie versus what constitutes a Michael movie, and what Blake responds to and what Michael doesn't really respond to. And when I look at this movie, I almost feel like if, I had an internal checklist of things I like in a movie, this movie doesn't seem to have any of them, right? It's funny, but not that funny. It's got a very weird, meandering plot that almost goes nowhere. There's not really that much character work when you get right down to it.
I actually argue that this is a very, very strong character study of the character of Redmond Barry, also Barry Lyndon.
I'm not entirely agreeing or disagreeing. Maybe what I should say is that Barry seems very remote. We don't get a lot of interiority from him. It feels like we're watching him from a great distance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's part of the way that this movie is framed in a lot of shots. But I will say, on the second viewing, I got a lot more out of the character of Barry than I did on the first viewing. And, his name in the beginning of the film is Redmond Barry, but he, for the most part of the movie, goes by Barry, so I'm going to just call him Barry for the rest of
Barry.
the discussion.
I was a little confused as to, the naming conventions of, rural Ireland in the 1800s, but that's besides the point.
Right.
I guess maybe... this movie, and I think this is kind of a common criticism of Kubrick, feels quite clinically detached at times.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, all that being said, I watched this whole movie in one sitting and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, I've seen this is kind of the movie in Kubrick's filmography that has captured people who aren't necessarily Kubrick heads. It's maybe a little bit more accessible than some of the other ones, like looking at 2001: A Space Odyssey, obviously.
Though ironically, it's often a movie that is somewhat overlooked.
Yeah.
You said Barry Lyndon. I'm like, isn't that the movie where Matt Damon duels people? And then I was like, no, isn't that some kind of Last of the Mohican shit? And then I looked it up. I'm like, oh, this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
Yeah. There's not a lot kind of, and I'm interested to see how you describe this in our plot summary of this one, because it's a weird movie that I wasn't expecting to love as much as I did the first time I watched it, and yet here I am talking about a movie that takes place during the late 1700s,
the 7 Years War.
Yeah, during the 7 Years War, and just like I said, absolutely falling in love with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, on that note, why don't I just jump right into the plot summary, such that it is. So we open to a young Irishman named Redmond Barry, who lost his father in a duel when he was a young man, and now essentially lives in poverty with his mother on his uncle's estate. Basically, it seems like him and his mom don't have 2 guineas to rub together, but their uncle kind of just lets them live there rent-free. And then Barry, this fatherless young man, falls head over heels in love with his cousin, which I guess people just did back then. I made the joke to my partner. I'm like, he's in love with her because she's the only woman he knows that isn't his mom.
Welcome to your teenage years.
Yeah, I guess. So more on that later. But anyways, things foul with Barry when his uncle tries to marry his daughter, Barry's cousin, off to some English cavalry officer.
Right.
Because basically the family's broke and they have no money and they need this guy's financial support, right?
Yep.
They need a generous dowry, if you might call it that, right? Yep. But Barry, being the impulsive young 34-year-old man that he is, he challenges this guy to a duel, kills him, again, more on that later, and then basically has to flee the authorities.
Yes.
So we then follow Barry on this little adventure as he, leaves home for the first time, ends up joining the British Army during the 7 Years' War, gets captured, then recaptured, etc., 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 before eventually somehow coming into money. And that takes up I'm jumping over a lot.
Yeah.
That's basically the first half of the movie, part 1.
Right.
Much like Full Metal Jacket, this movie basically has a 2-act structure.
Yep.
As opposed to maybe a 3-act structure. So, without getting too much into spoilers, the first act is how Barry, let's say, rises.
Yeah.
And the second act is how he falls.
Yes.
Quite far, I might add.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's Barry Lyndon.
Yeah, and I think, you spend a lot of time with the opening act of the film, but I think that, this is a pretty epic in scope movie. This takes place over maybe like 20-25 years of Barry's life.
Yep.
And that's even probably honestly excluding like his childhood years, which is just a brief kind of prologue to the film.
Basically, yeah.
It starts in his teenage years and probably goes till he's probably somewhere in his like mid 40s, I would guess.
Right, yeah. And I don't mean to talk shit on this movie, but I looked into it, and the lead actor,
Ryan O'Neal.
Ryan O'Neal. I don't mean to talk shit on this movie, but the lead actor, Ryan O'Neal, was, I think, 34 when he shot this movie.
Right.
So in the beginning, in the first little 45 minutes, people keep referring to him as a boy, and I'm like, this guy's older than I am. But you know what? More on that later, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm just getting my bitchiness out of the way. But
yeah.
No, I mean, I guess it's fair to say this movie is almost kind of a biopic for this fictional guy.
Yeah.
It's like a biography, sort of like a rags to riches story.
Right.
It's almost kind of a character study. But one thing I will mention is that this movie has a very unique framing device in that we have this kind of very stuffy British narrator who chimes in every now and then.
Yes.
Just to explain to us what's going on and offer some interpretations of what's going on.
And I would argue maybe the best use of narration in a film ever.
I know some film purists don't like the idea of voiceover narration. They feel like it's cheating.
Yep.
But I actually quite enjoyed the narrator for this movie.
Yeah. He adds kind of a comedic element to the film that is sometimes very unexpected.
Yes, really.
But he kind of also grounds maybe some of Barry's motivations. There's also some moments where he foreshadows things to come.
Which I actually think is a great technique for building tension.
Yes.
You notice this with books sometimes where I guess
I think Stephen King might be the master of this.
Yeah, where they'll sometimes just say, and something terrible is about to happen.
Yep.
Better turn the page, fuckhead.
Yep.
But
like I said, I think Stephen King is like my go-to for putting in foreshadowing of like, oh, and this is the last time that they ever saw him, or like, oh, and what's about to happen is extremely dark and horrible kind of thing.
Right, right.
And there's several moments in this story where the narrator pipes in and you kind of sit up and go, oh wow, things are going to get really bad for everyone involved here. And then there's kind of this slow train wreck that happens over the course of the next 15, 20 minutes where you know it's coming and you can feel it coming, but you don't know how it's going to happen.
Right. And what I found most interesting about this narrator is that he's not totally impartial to events either.
Yeah.
There are times when he seems sympathetic to Barry, but then there's other times where he seems almost like contemptuous of what's going on.
Yeah.
Which I found very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that this is one of the strongest narrated films ever.
It doesn't hurt that it's a very stuffy British voice. It's almost kind of like who's that Discovery Channel guy who did all those nature documentaries?
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
You know what? I'll remember.
David Attenborough.
David Attenborough, yeah. It's almost, I like to imagine he was narrating all this shit. But anyways, yeah. So anyways, like, kind of a character study, but we do have this interesting framing device. Yep. It's very good. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, so characters and people you may know. I don't have too much to talk about here because this movie did come out in 1975, and a lot of these actors are British, and maybe, modern audiences aren't going to know because a lot of these actors were really prominent in maybe the 70s or 80s and kind of fell off after that point in time. I do have to say that Ryan O'Neal, as you said, stars as Redmond Barry or Barry Lyndon. Modern audiences would know him from the show Bones. He was Bones' dad, the main character's dad.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's actually acted pretty much right up until he passed away in
2023, right?
Yeah.
Gone but not forgotten.
Yeah, so he was around. He was like really famous just before this. Like he did the movie Love Story and was considered like one of the top 10 like most prominent actors of the 70s.
Okay.
Right before this movie came out, and then this movie was kind of like the pinnacle of his career, I would say. And then he does a few things after that, but maybe like less significant than a couple of the films that he did in the 70s.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I read somewhere that basically the studio made Kubrick put one of the top 10 stars in the role. They were basically just like, this movie is not going to make any flippin' money, so you better put a star. You better make this movie marketable somehow, Stanley.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, he also starred in Paper Moon, which is a movie that I've been meaning to watch and haven't gotten to yet. I think it's a Peter Bogdanovich film. But yeah, so he is great in this role. He's, like you said, he's a little bit older for the young parts, but he kind of grows into it. I think that his performance is something that I actually really like and maybe was slightly controversial at the time.
I enjoyed his performance quite a bit too.
Yeah.
You got to give Kubrick credit. He always seemed to wring great performances out of people.
Yeah.
Despite being totally insane.
Yeah.
Himself.
I think the other kind of actress that I wanted to mention, especially, was Lady Lyndon, played by Marissa Berenson.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that, she doesn't have a lot of speaking parts in this movie. Most of the time she's kind of just there to look dour, honestly.
Yeah.
But one of the beauties of the 70s, like I don't know if there's ever been a more attractive person on screen before.
I know. I was kind of like, dear God.
Yeah, so we'll talk about her definitely in the deep dive. The only other person I wanted to shout out was Philip Stone is playing Graham, the accountant, essentially.
I have things to say about Graham.
So I the whole time I was watching this, especially on the second viewing, I was like, why do I know this guy? Like, where do I know this guy from? He actually starred in another one of Kubrick's movies. Can you guess which Kubrick movie?
Oh, he's not O'Grady, is he?
He
from The
is
Shining?
Delbert Grady in The Shining.
Grady, not O'Grady.
Yeah.
I was looking at him and I was like, who the flip is this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He also is Captain Philip Blumbert in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie in, 20 years.
Yeah, that's the one that I don't go back to as much, but I should go back to it at some point. I love Short Round, so.
Yeah. Indy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously Kubrick, rounding things out, the director, he's the one here that you're probably here to see this movie for. One of my favorite directors of all time, I would say. When we did the top 100, I think I had The Shining as my favorite of his, and then 2001 my second favorite, and this one my third. We'll talk about maybe how I feel about this one on my second viewing and where it maybe goes up or down on that list, in my opinion.
I think this would have cracked my top 100 if I'd seen it a few months ago. I can't say where. Probably in my 30s or 40s.
Yep. Yeah, that's fair. I think this movie is really great, and like you said, it's maybe a little bit underwatched, honestly.
Kind of. I think what's his butt? Scorsese has said that this was in fact Kubrick's masterpiece.
Yes, he's a massive fan of this one.
Yeah.
And with all of Kubrick's movies, like, I don't know that I could argue one or another is objectively his best or his masterpiece, because they're all so good that it kind of comes down to like personal taste, which one you like the best.
I actually, as an artist myself, I kind of despise the idea of a masterpiece, the idea that like, oh no, this was your best work.
Yeah.
Now shut up. I think it's up to, people can pick your favorite, but like you shouldn't have like a masterpiece in mind, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm ranting about esoteric shit.
I didn't know that was gonna bug you this much.
That's okay. It's my bugbears to bear. Anyways, so I couldn't say which Kubrick movie is my favorite, but I think what I like about Kubrick is that even if I don't super resonate with his movies, they're usually weird enough that I'm not gonna forget this,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's cool that he got to do so many different genres and so many take on so much different work as well. Like, I feel like somebody like Nolan could maybe try that a little bit more. Like, I'd love to see a Chris Nolan horror movie, like The Shining kind of thing. And like, I think Kubrick dipped his toes into a lot of different genres, and he was kind of better for that.
He was also, I think he was a great adapter. Like he seemed to like grab other source materials, but then put his own twisted spin on them.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that even with this one when we get into the deep dive. His spin on it.
Absolutely.
So, who is this movie for? Does it hold up to a modern watch? I think you and I are both in agreement that this one holds up to a modern watch shockingly well for a movie that came out in the 70s. That's maybe not considered, like it's probably for the average moviegoer, not even the third movie of Kubrick's that comes to mind.
I'd even say this isn't a movie I should have liked.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have all the things I typically resonate with in a movie, but I was still like glued to my screen for 3 hours and 1 minute.
Yeah, it's shockingly cinematic in a way that you almost can't even comprehend. Like the way that it genuinely feels at times like Kubrick is capturing, like he's time traveled back to the 1700s and is filming a like authentic portrayal or authentic people in real life at times.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we're gonna have a lot to say in the deep dive, but no complaints. I'm glad I watched this movie, and I saw it 2 days ago. I'm still kind of trying to piece together why I liked this weird ass movie so much.
Yeah, and so I think that this movie has a little bit of everything for everyone in it, which it may, I think some people might not gel with that, but this movie starts with essentially like a weird, steamy romance. And it's like,
a weird, steamy, incestuous romance. Yeah.
But, it's got some great comedic elements. It's got some really dark undertones going on with it. Like, there's something to be said about the class struggle in this. Like,
yeah,
it has a lot going on.
It's also like shockingly unconventional in the sense that like it's almost like a play in that it has 2 acts as opposed to 3 acts. Yep. The main character isn't totally likable.
Yes.
But like, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see a lot of people just not vibing with this movie, right? Yeah. But I do think everyone should at least give it a chance.
Yes, I agree. I think this is one that you will be better having seen it than not.
Absolutely. And if you don't like it, we'll challenge you to a duel.
I demand satisfaction, Michael.
Yeah.
I think that people are going to resonate with this, or the people who are also going to resonate with like those kind of big character studies as well, and kind of trying to figure out maybe a kind of somewhat of an enigmatic figure, because Barry's, like you said, there's kind of like this detachment to the character of Barry. Like, we're not seeing things through his perspective very often.
Right. It's almost kind of it's kind of like I said earlier, we do kind of literally and figuratively, we seem to be observing him from a distance.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of just up to us to be like, what the fuck was that about, right?
Yep.
He's also not the kind of, this isn't the kind of movie, and he's not the kind of character where like he'll pick up like Yorick's skull and like deliver a soliloquy about why he's doing what he's doing. You just have to be like, Okay, man, sure.
He's not particularly elegant by any means.
No, or even articulate for
Yeah.
that matter,
Yeah.
right?
Agree. But again, like I said, on the second viewing especially, there was things that I picked up on that I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That I maybe didn't catch on the first viewing. I think the other thing that we probably really should hammer home is like how historically, artistically important this is. Like this is one of those movies that somehow, again, just captures the feeling of the 1700s extremely well, and part of that's also comes down to like stuff like the lighting choices. Like a lot of this movie is filmed without artificial lighting. There's a couple uses of it, but you can't even notice them because they're probably used pretty minimally. And they're shot on real locations. Like these are real 1700s estates.
It was also not all of them, but quite a lot of the wardrobe, quite a lot of the costumes were actual like pieces of historical like
that
garb.
they found in like I
don't know where you'd find that shit. Like I want to say a yard sale, but yeah,
so like this feels, there's an authenticity to this that few movies have ever kind of even come close to. And I think there's plenty of movies that kind of play to this era of European civilization, and a lot of them are more geared towards like the female perspective and like, oh, repressed women, and like this is like a genre or a period that Jess really likes to watch. So I wasn't expecting to kind of grapple with this as much as or enjoy this as much as I did on my first viewing, and I was kind of expecting Jess to maybe like it, but also she's not a big Kubrick guy, or Kubrick's not really her guy, so I wasn't sure how she was going to gel with this, and we both kind of met in the middle on that first viewing.
Yeah, we'll talk about this more in the deep dive. There is something weirdly hypnotic about this weird little guy and his travels through Europe.
Yeah. And I think part of it's just because maybe the close comparison is something like The Green Knight, where it's about a character who is almost untested in a way. He's lived a very sheltered life, and he has kind of no worldly experience, and I think that also speaks to maybe many of our experiences and kind of our teenage years into like growing into adulthood,
in our 30s.
Yeah.
It is an interesting comparison. I didn't make that. I would say The Green Knight is more intimately focused on the character and their internal journey, whereas this movie, it's just kind of like there's this one scene later on in the movie where you just see Barry kind of forlornly sitting by himself with like his arms on the railing and just staring off into the distance, and like I almost wanted to like walk into the frame and be like, what the hell is going on with you, Barry? Like
just shake him.
Yeah, like what are you doing, man? Explain yourself to me.
The only other thing I'll say going into this one that I had to look up this time because I couldn't remember if it was just my version or not, but I guess so. This movie has French and German dialogue kind of woven in a couple times throughout the movie, and there's no translation at the time that it's shown. And it's very brief, and honestly, a lot of the time the narrator kind of speaks over it as soon as they get talking into other languages. But if that really bugs you, apparently if you turn on the English subtitles, that the translations will pop up.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I think I was watching this with captions on, and I don't know that it translated it for me.
Oh, interesting.
Or I think it did, but it was like still in its like native form, right?
Right.
Which, to be honest, I actually kind of liked that because it does kind of make you sympathize with Barry a little more because like he doesn't know what they're saying either.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't mind that at all, but who knows?
So when to watch? I mean, this is a big 3-hour movie. I think this is probably best on a Sunday afternoon if you want to get through it all in one go. Otherwise, the intermission is a really great kind of parsing of this film.
Yeah, you could watch this in 2 shifts if that's what you'd like.
Yep.
I am notorious for having a short attention span and having a hard time sitting still. I was able to just power through this in one sitting.
Awesome.
And when I don't even mean power through it like it was an ordeal. I mean, I was genuinely just like kind of lost. It's rare that a 3-hour movie can make me forget that I'm watching a 3-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? So, no, I enjoyed this quite a bit.
Awesome. I'm so excited that you like this. I was really on the fence about whether you'd like this one or not.
Yeah, really. Well, again, I shouldn't have liked this movie, but I did. And honestly, I feel like that's kind of the highest praise I can give a work of art. Like, I shouldn't have liked this, but I really did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I very much agree.
Hey.
So where to watch? This one you can kind of at this point in time only really rent or buy. I own this one now, so I can't really speak to the quality of renting it, but you know, it's kind of one of those standard you can grab it on.
I just rented it on YouTube. It's fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah, you're gonna have to shell out a little bit of money to watch this movie.
But it's worth your time.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You're getting it's like $4.99 to rent on YouTube. You're getting 3 hours of entertainment, so that's like what?
Just over $1 an hour.
Just $1 an hour.
But again, I honestly think that this is one that might be worth a buy if you're kind of on the fence, because it's really good.
I mean, does your version have like an audio commentary or special features or anything?
I don't know. I have to check.
Okay.
I don't really pay attention to that stuff.
I don't normally pay attention to that shit either, but I actually might. I don't know if Kubrick ever recorded. I guess he wouldn't have because he died before DVDs came out, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. Anyways, maybe we'll do an audio commentary for this movie. If the Kubrick estate would like us to sound off, we will do it.
Well, I think that's it for the primer episode. I really hope that you go and see this one and come back for the deep dive because, again, this is... if I had to say, like, the last 6 months, one movie that I think is, like, more worth your time than any other, this is it. Like, this is to me like one of the pinnacles of film.
I definitely had some movies we watched in the last 6 months that I probably enjoyed a little more.
Yep.
But this movie I feel is just it's so unconventional that like it's so hypnotic that I feel like I have more to say about it than any movie we've seen recently.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really excited talking about this one in full deep dive.
Okay. Well,
we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Pow pow.